Maybe. There we go. All right. 5.2, we're going to be talking about congruent triangles and what makes two triangles congruent to one another. And so our goal for today is to be able to identify corresponding parts of congruent triangles and use them to find missing sides and angles. And then also to be able to write triangle congruence statements. So that's where we are headed. But before we get there, we're going to do a quick warm-up. So we have two questions on here. The first one is triangle angle sum, finding that missing angle. And then the next one is solving for x using the exterior angles theorem. These are both going to still be important to us, so we want to make sure that we continue going over them. So take a minute or two and solve the questions on the warm-up. When you are finished, type trick or treat into the chat. All right, if you got 90 for the first one, you are correct. And then if you're solving this one, and this is the equation that you set up, you're on the right track. And then if you got x is 25 for the second one, you are correct. So all we did there was we take the two inside ones, add them together, and set it equal to the exterior angle. And then we solve for x. Okay, any questions on the warm-up? Any numbers we're not sure where they came from, steps we're not sure why or how they happened? If you do, feel free to unmute yourself and say so, or type in the chat. Otherwise, here we go. So today we're starting with 5.2, all about congruent triangles. Congruent triangles. Okay. So, when we're talking about congruent triangles, first we have to talk about real quick how we label triangles and things like that. So, if I have a triangle like this, usually the corners are labeled with letters. So like C, P, Q. So if I was going to name this triangle, we would put the triangle symbol, which is just a tiny triangle, in front of these three letters in any order. It does not matter what order you put the letters in if you're just naming the triangle. So this could be triangle CPQ. It could also be called triangle QPC, triangle PCQ, triangle QCP, PQC, CQP. Any of those names work for the triangle. So just a refresher, that's how we name triangles. That's how we label them. But when we talk about triangles being congruent, then all of a sudden the letter order starts to matter a little bit. Because the order that I put the letters when I talk about two triangles being congruent tells me something about which parts go together on those triangles, which parts of them are congruent. So, we have this thing that kind of talks about that. It's called corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent. Corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent, and that's a mouthful. So whenever we refer back to this, we usually call it by this acronym CPCTC. And we don't often refer to it by name, but if you ever see something in the book or on a worksheet or anything like that that says CPCTC, that's talking about this concept that parts that go together on two triangles that are congruent are going to be congruent to one another. So if angle A goes with angle D, then those two angles would be congruent if the two triangles are congruent. So that's the main idea here. So we're going to illustrate that. But I'll let everyone catch up writing here. Okay. So we're going to illustrate this using two triangles. We're going to have triangle ABC and triangle DEF. Okay, so that means if triangle ABC is congruent to triangle DEF, the letter order here tells me which parts of these triangles go together. So the first thing it tells me is that angle A is congruent to angle D, because angle A is the first letter and angle D is the first letter. So if these two triangles are the same, then the first angle are the same on both of these. First angles are the same. It also tells me angle B is congruent to angle E because they're both the second letter. And as I go, I'm going to label this in the picture. So if you had to venture a guess, which angle do you think is going to be congruent to angle C? What do we think? Anybody? What are we going to have congruent to angle C? Yes, Christy, you got it. Angle F, because they're the last letter. So C and F will go together. Okay, so that's the first thing it tells me, that these angles are the same based on where they're at in the letter order. The second thing it tells me is about the sides. The second thing it tells me is about the sides. So on the sides, it's a very similar thing with the letter order. AB, since A and B are the first two letters, goes with DE. Since those are also the first two letters. So AB will be the same length as DE. And then BC will be the same as EF. Because BC and EF are the last two letters. So then lastly, AC will be congruent to FD. Here's AC, here's DF or FD. Those are going to be the same as well, because it's the first and last letter and the first and last letter. So if you can match up things with the letter order, we're in good shape here. So that's one type of thing we might be asked to do. We might be given a congruent statement like this and they might ask us, what angle is congruent to angle B? And we'd have to go, oh, well, B is the middle letter and E is the middle letter, so it must be E. Your cat is very invested. Okay. The other thing that we might be asked to do with this kind of set of instructions is write an alternative congruence statement. So if we are asked to write an alternative congruent statement, they might start it for us and say something like triangle BCA is congruent to blank. And you would have to figure out the letter order that goes with this new letter order here. So instead of ABC, we now have BCA. And so now what you have to do is look at the original and go, okay, well, B is the first letter here now. And I know B and E went together. So then E will be my new first letter. And then C is my second letter here. C and F went together, so F will be my next letter. And then lastly, A is my third letter. A and D went together, so D must be my last letter. So this would be considered an alternative congruent statement to this one. They're equivalent statements, they're just different letter orders. But the letters still go with the letters that they went with before. So if you check it, if you already wrote all this down, you can go, okay, does B still go with E? Yes, it does. Does C still go with F? Yes, it does. Does A still go with D? Yes. So then we're good. It's how we can kind of check ourselves there. Make sure that the letters go with the letters that they're supposed to go with. Okay, so that's kind of the basics of using this CPCTC. Okay, so any questions at this point? Anything that we're not sure about quite yet? Okay, so I'm gonna have you guys try one. I'm gonna set up 2 triangles here. We're gonna have triangle CAT is congruent to triangle DOG. And I want to know which parts go together. Okay, so here's what I want you guys to try. We have triangle CAT congruent to triangle DOG. And I want to know what angles go with CA and T, what sides go with CA, AT, and CT. And then if I were to rewrite the congruent statement with TCA, what would go over here? So take a moment or two, try that one on your own. And then when you are finished, type either cat or dog in the chat, whichever one you want to type. All right, we're getting people typing both, cat and dog, or cat dog. Do you guys remember that show, Cat Dog? Or is that before your time? Yes. Such a weird show. Nice. Yeah, I remember I always got to watch that when I went to the dentist because they had cable there. That and like SpongeBob. Yeah, it looks like most of us are starting to finish up here. You're on the right track if you went with angle D, angle O, and angle G. And then DO goes with CA, since that's the first two letters. AT goes with OG, since that's the second two letters. And then CT goes with DG, since it's first and last. Also kind of by process of elimination here. All right, and then what do we get for what is TCA congruent to here? Anyone want to type in the chat what they put? Nice, David. GDO. I agree. Because T went with G, so that means G comes first. C went with D, so that means D comes second. And then by process of elimination, or the fact that A goes with O, O goes third. Okay, so that's one big part of what we're going to be doing today. The second big part of what we're going to be doing today is using this to find missing things. So our next example is going to involve using the fact that two triangles are congruent to find missing measures. So we might see a problem like we've got two triangles. And we might be told triangle TOP is congruent to triangle QNL. And then we might know that this picture. Yeah, no problem. Let's see, this might be 53 degrees. This might be 71 degrees. And we might be given just this information, or we might also be given like, you know, this is 7 inches and this is 15 inches or something like that. And we'll be asked a couple different things. We'll be asked find measure of angle N and find QL or something like that. Okay. So in order to do this, we have to take the information that we have in the picture, and then also the information that we know about the triangles being congruent, and kind of put that together. Because technically, I don't know anything about this triangle yet, except that it's congruent to TOP. So what I would start with if I was going to find measure of angle N is I would figure out what angle it goes with over here. Well, N is the middle letter, N goes with O. So O is the angle over here that it goes with. But that's a problem because I don't have angle O, right? Could I find angle O? Do you think you can find angle O? Try finding angle O. What would its measure be? When you think you've got it, type it in the chat. If you're not sure, I'll give you a hint. This is 53. Yeah, sorry, it's not the most clear. 53 and 71. 53, 71. Nice, Gavin. Close, Cheyenne. Remember, that's a 71. So here we do just subtract off of 180, the 53 and the 71, and we should get 56. So if angle O is 56 degrees, then we can go ahead and say angle N would also be 56 degrees because angle N and O are the same, because we know that these triangles are congruent. All right. So that's like the harder case of things. The easier case of things is when we've got sides that we're trying to figure out, because you know, sides of a triangle don't add to 180 or anything like that. So we can only say straight across that they are equal. So when I'm looking for QL, well, QL is this one. And we can kind of tell based on the picture which one probably goes with QL. But just in case and just to make sure, we want to check with our letter order over here. QL is the first and last letter. TP is the first and last letter. So it goes with TP. So QL will also be 7. All right. And then lastly, NQ. NQ is this one here. N and Q are the first two letters. O and T are the first two letters. So that means it goes with OT, which is 15. So then NQ is also 15. And then we're done. Okay. So that's one type of problem that we will see. And then the very last type of problem that we will see includes some algebra. Basically takes the same idea and tosses a little bit of algebra in the mix. We will do that in just a moment, but I'll let people catch up writing if people are writing. Okay. So for this next one, here's our picture. We've got angle A is 62 right here. We've got this side length is y minus 7. We have this side length is 40. This side length is 32. And then we have this angle P is 3x plus 2. We are told that triangle ATC is congruent to triangle PQR. And we want to find x and y. This is the last kind of problem that we're going to need to know today. Okay. So if you feel good about this sort of thing and you want to try solving it on your own, you can, or you can go through it with me. So here we go. First of all, if I'm trying to find x, x is involved with angle P, and P is congruent to angle A because they're both the first letter. So that means that 3x plus 2 is going to be congruent to, or that angle is going to be congruent to this angle, 62. So all I have to do is go 3x plus 2 equals 62. Because when things are congruent to each other, we just set them equal. And then I need to solve for x. So I'm going to subtract 2 on both sides, get 3x equals 60, and then divide by 3 on both sides and get x equals 20. So we're all done with that one. We figure out what x is going to be. The second thing we have to do is figure out what y is going to be, and y is involved in this side CT, or TC, which is the last 2 letters here. So that means it goes with the last 2 letters on my other shape. So we have TC and QR, and QR is this one here. So TC and QR are going to be the same. So I would set y minus 7 equals 32. And then solve for y. So I would add 7 to both sides and get y equals 39. Okay. So that is pretty much everything for this. That's everything new that we need to know today. We need to know how to put parts that go together, and we need to know that the parts that go together are congruent, so I can use that to solve for things that I'm missing. Any questions on any of the examples we've seen so far? Any numbers we're not sure where they came from? Anything we're not sure why we set them equal, or anything like that? Where can we find office hours? That's a good question. So office hours. I'll put this back up in a moment. Office hours, if you go to my website and you click on geometry across the top, and you can get to my website off of the Auburn Riverside School website. If you go to teacher pages down along the side, click teacher pages and then put in my name, and it should take you here. If you click on geometry and you scroll down a little bit to where it says extra help, this is the link for office hours. And I will be in that link from 8 to 8:30 in the morning, Tuesday to Friday. Or if that time doesn't work for you, send me an email and we can work out a different time. Okay. Yeah, no problem. And today's assignment is going to be in Big Ideas, online textbook. So I'm going to post that real quick and then we'll go through a couple of them together. And then I will also be posting these notes, and I'll get them up earlier today than yesterday. So if you don't quite have all of this written down, it's okay. I will post them. So in Google Classroom, we now have our Big Ideas assignment posted. If you click on that, it'll take you to the 5.2 practice. Okay. So the first question is just kind of a, what can we conclude from the picture? So what I would do for this one is go down and look and kind of analyze each one. Can I conclude that, yes or no? And this is the only one like this, and it's kind of a review problem from a previous unit. We just want to make sure that we can identify things from a picture as well. So the first one says angle LK or LJK. So LJK, that's this one right here that's labeled, is congruent to LMK. That's this one over here that's also labeled. And since these are labeled with the same kind of arc in the corner. They both have one arc in the corner. That means they are congruent from the picture. So yes, I can conclude that. The next one says angle JLM is 90. JLM. Nope. There's no right angle marker on JLM, and there's not a right angle marker on anything that's a linear pair with JLM. So can't conclude that one. How about LKM though? LKM does have that right angle symbol on it. So yes, I can conclude that that one is 90 from the picture. Next one says LMK is 90. LMK, nope, can't conclude that that one's 90 because it doesn't have a right angle symbol on it. And it's also impossible for that one to be 90 if the other one is 90. But that's besides the point. The next one says LJ is congruent to LK. LJ and LK. Nope, can't conclude that those are congruent because they don't have a little hash in the side like these ones do. So nope, can't conclude that. And then JK congruent to MK. Here's JK, here's MK. Yes, I can conclude those are congruent because they both have a line in the side. Okay, so that's all we have to do on that first one. And we can check and go, okay, yep, we got them. Okay, that's the only one like that. I just wanted to go through it and make sure that we all are okay with reading diagrams. The next one is kind of like example number 2. It tells you that XYZ is congruent to MNL, and we want to find the measure of angle Y. So if I'm looking at my letter orders here, angle Y is the same as angle N because those are both the middle letter. And so looking over here, angle N is 124. So that means angle Y is also 124. Okay. Then we'll do one more together, and then you guys will be free to go work on your own. Okay. The next one says JKL is congruent to XYZ. Identify all pairs of corresponding congruent parts. So that's just like example 1 in the U-try problem that you guys did. We're just identifying things that go together. So J goes with X because they're both the first letter. So we would drag X over here. K goes with Y since they're the second letters. And then L goes with Z since they're the third letter. And then for sides, JK are the first 2 letters, XY are the first 2 letters. KL are the second 2 letters, YZ are the second 2 letters. So then lastly, JL and XZ must go together. Okay, so at this point, we've gone through a couple of the problems together. There are a total of 10 problems. You have the rest of class to work on these. If you have questions, feel free to stick around or pop back into the Google Meet because I will be here. Otherwise, you are free to go and work on the assignment. If you're not done with your quiz from Monday, please, please, please do that first.